Okay, I want to welcome everyone to this webinar, Getting Started Developing on Jahia7. This is the first of 3 webinars where we will be presenting the new Jahia7 Digital Factory and the Studio. So the new Jahia7 Studio provides new tools for developers specifically in order to simplify their work and accelerate their work on their Jahia platform. To demonstrate these tools, I want to go directly to my Digital Factory version 7 that I have installed here in development mode. So I will log in with the root user, and I will use the mode menu to go directly to Studio. Now, I mentioned I'm installed in development mode. Only in development mode is the Studio available, of course. So as Jahia7 is completely integrated with Maven, we can go ahead and create a new module directly in Studio by clicking New Module. Here I'm presented with the Maven archetype values that I would use if I were running a command line module creation. But here we can do it in Studio. And for this example, I'm going to create a module called Acne News. And I'll leave the rest default. And what that means is the artifact ID will be being created automatically, and the sources will be installed for the module, will be installed in a default folder, which we'll look at a bit later. So behind the scenes here, the Maven role is executing to create a module. And once the module has been created, we are free to do all our work inside Studio. So once this is finished, we have a module, and we have what here is here the module details page. And on the module details page, we have our module information here, the versions that are installed. And here, with a simple click of a button, I could enable this module and any available sites on the Digital Factory installation. Down here, we have the dependencies for our module. And then on the left, we're presented with several panels, the first being the file system of our sources. So I'm going to click here on the PUM file, and I can visualize the PUM file, and I can even edit it if I want to. But let's drill down inside our module here and see that we have a definitions file that's been created for us automatically. Now again, anytime you see a file in this tree on the left, you're free to edit it inside Studio. I just want to show you that if I put some bad syntax here in my definitions file, I'm going to get a warning, and it's going to guide me directly to the line of that bad syntax. So that's an improvement from working on definitions CMD files from before. So in order to build our module up, create maybe a custom component category and, of course, a node, we will use what's called the modeler to build our definitions. So we can do that by right-clicking here on the tree, the definitions CMD file. I have the choice to create a node type definition or namespace. And it's best practice in Jahia to use your own namespace. You don't collide with any Jahia default modules. So what I want to do is create one namespace after the other. And I'm going to stay with my Acne example here. And I'll do a namespace for my components and quickly add another to talk about my custom mixins. What hooks up with my custom mixins? Giving a unique URI for each. So we don't see our namespaces yet in our definitions file because we haven't used them. So let's go ahead and create a custom component category for the components I will create in my Acne module. So I will create a new node type definition. And here I can create a primary node type or a mixin node type. Let's pick mixin. And now again, we're in this tool called modeler, so we can build up our definition. So for here, we will just choose our namespace prefix that we created, the mixin, and we'll call this Acne component. And in the title field, I want to add a legible name. Okay? Now for this example, we just need to make sure this is droppable content. We can use it in edit mode. And that's all we need to do here. Once that's saved, we see that our definitions file is being built up. We have our mixins here. So let's right-click again, always right-clicking, and create our node Acne News. So this time we choose primary node type. We choose our prefix. We give our node a name. And now we have a list of supertypes. Remember, you can inherit from one supertype, but then you can apply as many mixes as you'd like. And that supertype, more than not, is JNT content, of course. That's that. That you can use all the standard JCR properties, such as versioning and metadata, and so forth. And now for mixins, we see our custom mixin is right there at the top. We'll drag that over. This way we can organize our Acne component inside our new category. And another mixin that's good to add is, of course, the standard mix title, which will create the standardized title, which could be synchronized with the system name. So we can go ahead and click Save, and now we see our definitions file is still being built up with our new node type definition. Of course, we'd like to add properties here, so I wanted to go out and come back to show you that. Again, in the tree, we just right-click on our node, and we can edit, and we're back in the modeler. So this first tab is for the base attributes. The second tab is where we add properties. Adding a property is very easy. You just click the Add button here. And because I created that, I added that mixed title, if I create a property of JCR title, I can override those default values. So down here are all the things you can do for a property definition. And for this example, I'm going to change the core group to tree, putting bigger weight on the index for search for this title field property. And I can stay in here and add as many properties as I like. So next, I want to add a body for my news. And we can leave that as type string, but of course we would like to present in edit mode the WYSIWYG editor, so we choose rich text. And thirdly, I will add an image. Now here, for image, we'll select type week reference. We will also present a file picker to the user who's creating this content, and we can set an option that they can only choose files of type image. And then we click Save. So here's an overview of our node and the properties. Clicking on the definitions file, we see our properties have been added. And one thing I want to be sure of is that I got some legible titles in the title field for my properties. So I click Edit once more, and I go to the Properties tab. I can remove a property. I can move it up and down. I can add a new property. Clicking on each property will allow me to edit it. So let's go all the way down at the bottom here, and here's our title field. And we don't want to display Acne, we do not want to display JCR underscore title, of course. We want to give it a proper name, and this will be linked with the resource bundle file. We want to do this for each property here. What I mean by that is entering a value here will automatically create the proper keys in the resource bundle file. And we'll take a look at that in a second. Saving in work here. So now we've added our properties. And I mentioned resource bundle files. Let's go here and see those. Under this folder, we see that there are quite a few files that were automatically generated when I created my module. Of course, you could just go ahead and delete any of these files if you're not using that language. So let's look at this. Here we have, I'll focus in a little bit closer here, the English resource bundle file. And here are the keys and the translations. Now remember, before we had to type in all this by hand. Even better, if I right-click here and edit, now I'm in the resource bundle editor. And here we have the name of my component category. I have the name of my node type, Acne News, my node, and as well as the properties of my node. So entering values in that title field automatically created these keys in the resource bundle. So I could go ahead and work on the translations here. I'm free to add anything I'd like here, like a label, and then I can work with that. And I can add a new language easily here. Go ahead and add Dutch and save. So here, there's my Acne News _NL properties file that I could work on. So that's the resource bundle editor. Now that we have our definitions created, we would like to create a view for this node, of course. And that can easily be done by, again, clicking in the tree here, right-clicking, and we have an option to add a view. Now what we have is the composer. And let me focus in here. This is our script editor built inside Studio. It uses code highlighting, so I can start typing. I'll edit H2 tag here. Code highlighting is being used. We have what's called Snippets to provide faster development. So out of the box, we have property, conditional, we have loops and resources, which I'll show you in a minute. And for every property I created, I could go ahead and display that property or set that property in a variable. So let's go ahead and find our JCR title and display that. There we go. And for my image, I would like to set my image property in a variable first. All I have to do is take out the string, get the actual image, and name it. And then, so I didn't have to type in this webinar, I put the next line of code in a snippet, snippet 2. And here I have linked it with this variable, and I'm getting the image, and then I'll display it in the view. Finally, let's display our body property for our news. And I'm going to keep this in H3 text here. And now I can save. And the default name is default, and we'll just keep it as that for right now. Let's submit. And over here on the left, we see that the correct folder structure has been created with an HTML folder to designate that this is an HTML view. And our view has been created and named here. So I can right-click on my view and edit, or I can edit top right corner where I showed you before. And what I want to show you is the second tab here are all the properties you can add to a view. Remember, today you have to create a properties file by hand and then type in the options here. But I can just simply, if I want to cache my user, for example, I can save, and now I have an Acne properties file already created for me. So that's news to get. So now that we've saved our view, I showed you the properties file. Remember, we go back to the module details page, and that section where I can just, with the click of a button, enable my module on my site. I'll go ahead and do that. From the mode menu, I can go to edit mode. And here I am on a site I created called Acne Corporation. It's based on the sample bootstrap template provided with Jahia Digital Factory. And I'll just create an Acne News. So enable this page content area. And here's my custom component category. And here's my Acne News. So I already have some things in my clipboard here. So I'll say some Jahia News here. There we go. This is a little smaller. And here I'll select an image I already uploaded. It's the Jahia logo. And save. So here's my news. And I'll go here and I'll open the preview in another tab here. We can work with that. So here's my Acne News rendered using its default view. Now what I want to do is improve on this. Go back to Studio and create another view. So let's go back there. So here's my default view, and actually what I want to do is take this code and put it in a new, I'll just copy in a new view. So I click on the HTML folder here, right click, and I can quickly add another view. There we go. Again, I'll focus in here so you can see better. There we go. So this is going to be our detail view, and I will save it as detail. Now I have two views. Going back to our default view, I go here to click edit so I can really work in this file locked down. So if I click edit here, locking is on, just like in our current Digital Factory edit mode. No one else can come in and change this file while I'm working on it. So our default view will change. We don't need this code in here. We want to present the title of the news and then give the user a link to the actual detailed news page. So again, I wanted to make this webinar easy for myself, so I did a snippet here. And what this does is get the current node, the news item, the Acne news content URL, and then create the link and present it to the user. So let's go ahead and save that. Excuse me. So now we have our two views, and we can go ahead and see and preview. That works. There we go. I didn't have to deploy, I didn't have to compile, I didn't have to do anything. Everything was taken into account. So here's our default view, which is the title, and our link to read more. Oops. Of course, I forgot my steps. For all this work correctly, we need to create a content template, as you know. So that is done, but the second step here, I have access to the templates from my module. There we go. So right-clicking, I can create a new content template, which I will call Acne full page. This content template is to be applied on Acne News. I drag that over. You're going to want to set can be used as default and give it priority depending on how many modules you have going on in your installation. And I click save. So let's click here, and now we can work on our template. This is like the skeleton of our template. There's nothing here but a page content. Make that. And those of you that know how to work on content templates and give access to detailed views and full page, you know the next step is to create a main resource display. And here in the view, because I apply this on type Acne News, I will have my Acne News views in this list. So here's my detailed view that I just created earlier. That's what we want to show on the content template. And I save. Now, this will work now. It's pretty much done, but I want to add a back button from the site component so the user can go back to the parent page. We'll just get back to previous page. And now we're done. Now, a new thing in Studio here is switching between structure view and in-context view. Now, we don't have, oops, my back button is weird. Oh, that was just a name in there. I was saying structure and in-context view. If I click in-context view, it will pull in all the CSS possible to show me how this will be rendered. Now, I don't have much CSS going on here, so there's not that much of a difference. But please look into using this tool. It's very, very useful. So if I want my content template to be available in live mode, I will need to compile my module. Since I'm here in preview mode, I should click on this link and it will work. Here we go. So here's my Acne News content. This rendered is with its detailed view. And here's my back button, and I can go back. Like I said, if we want to go live, we have to compile. But before we compile our module, I would like to go back and talk about CSS, which is something you can do all inside Studio now. You can create files in here. You can add a CSS file that's already created and work inside Studio on that CSS. So in my example, I don't really have anything going on with CSS file. So under resources, I'll create a new directory called CSS. I'll right-click on CSS, and I can create a new file of any type, and I can tell which code highlighting to use in in the composer, but here I'll just put a new CSS file, and now I'm going to make a really, really simple example just for this Acne News module here. What I'm going to do is all my H2 titles that I created before, I'll just make that so we can see that easy enough. So that's done. I just have to name my CSS. And there we go. Now, of course, the next step is to change my views so I could pull in that CSS as a resource and apply them to the H3 titles that I use. So I'm, again, going to the default view in the tree, and up here clicking edit so I can knock down the file. The idea is to use the template and resources tag, and I don't even have to type anything in. As mentioned earlier, we have snippets for the resources, and I should see, there it is, my Acne CSS file that I just created, and that's all I need to do. Okay. Of course, let's change our detail view as well. With the cursor where we want it, go to the category of snippets that we want, and we say Acne CSS. There we go, and save. Now, as mentioned earlier, not only have to compile our module because we have CSS that needs to be compiled. So always in this first tab under File System, you have this submenu here, and the first button is where you compile your module. So this will take a minute to compile, and it will also update on all the sites that have this module enabled on them. So while that's compiling, and there we are. So if I go back to my preview tab here, I should be able to see the CSS being applied. There, my H2 tag became red on the my tag, and also on my detail view. So again, you can feel free to work in CSS inside Studio. What I want to talk about next is the sources. So we're looking at the actual module sources here in the file structure. So where are these sources? Well, when I created my module, there was a sources field in that dialog where I could have typed in any directory, any path I wanted, something on my local file system, on a server, what have you. But I left it as default. Now, what I have here is my installation here. Let's go down here. So the default will install the sources in the sources folder underneath Legends bar under your Tomcat or application server installation. So here's our sources, Acne News. And if I drill down here, it's the same thing as looking in Studio. It's the same file. So here I have my Acne News, my CSS. Here are my two views. And I'll go to the details, and I can go ahead and edit this directly on the file system. So again, what I'm showing you here is that you can open up your IntelliJ, your Eclipse, your integrated development environment, and work in there. And I'll show you that any changes you make are, of course, propagated back to the Studio and Jahia. So I'm going to type some text in here. I'll just put the word version to dots, and I'll save it. So that's saved. Going back to my my installation here, let's see what happens when I refresh. There we go. So again, I edited the source file somewhere else, not in Studio, on the file system, but I could have done that inside my integrated development environment. Now, I say that because you're definitely going to want to use your favorite tool, integrated development environment, for working on Java files and on Java code, because this is good using code snippets. But, you're going to want to use the tool that's right for the task at hand. So now that we have created our module, I want to talk about cruise control, because we want to save this module. We want to eventually distribute and release this module, release and distribute. So again, next to the compile module here, we have a source control, and I can't commit my module because first I need to send it to source control. So for this example, here I am in my GitHub account, and I've created a repository called Acne News. It's empty. It's ready to be populated. So I'll copy this the URI for the repository, GitHub. And going back to Studio, I click Send to Source Control. Now we're integrated with Source Control, Git or SVN. I'll use the default Git. And I will go ahead and type that in, or paste that in here, and click OK. So now my sources are being sent to GitHub. That being done, let's go back to GitHub and refresh. And here we go. We have our first commit. Let's look at the PUM file here to make sure we have everything right. We have our Acne News module as 1.0 snapshot in source control. And I want to draw your attention to this SEM tag. This is what we are going to use to link source control and Studio back and forth. So that's been created for us. If you have a module that is not connecting to source control, please look at your PUM file, go into the SEM tag here, and see that you have everything set up correctly. Just as we made modifications in Studio and on the file system, I would like to look at my views inside GitHub here. So here are my two views, and I'm going to click on the detail view, and I'm going to add to this text that I was working on earlier. So here we have our default view, and I'm going to use editor inside. Sorry. Here, I'm already in the edit. Sorry, somebody just walked into my room and interrupted me. So what I want to say is 1.0 snapshot is what we're running. And all I have to do is choose my changes here. Now, again, let's go back to our preview tab here. Oh, no, sorry. Of course, the next step is we have to update our module in Studio. What happened is somebody else was working on a module, they made improvements, and we want to get the latest version of our module. So again, under source control, now we can update our module. This will take a minute. Again, with that SEM tag correctly populated, we'll be able to go into GitHub and get the latest commit. And the latest commit is that change I had showed you by adding 1.0 snapshot as the version. So here's the Git stash information. Everything looks good. So now if I refresh here I can see my changes brought in from GitHub when I updated my module. So now I want to talk about releasing a module. So again, under this menu here, this submenu, the third submenu is the distribution menu. Let's say I just wanted to quickly build the jar file of this module and install it on another server. I could just export the jar. But if I want to choose release the module, I'm going to have more options. So with Jahia7, you could install a distribution server, so a Maven repository alone, or a Maven repository and then a Jahia private app store on top of that. We are going to talk about the private app store in a future webinar, so we're not going to go into that here. Just remember, to release the module just on GitHub, you skip this step. There's an option to skip here. So it already knows that I'm connected with GitHub, a GitHub repository. So all I have to do is decide if my release is a minor or a major release. So I'm going to keep it a minor release. So I tell it the next iteration is 1.1 snapshot. And I click release. Now again, behind the scenes, Jahia is building, packaging, releasing the module. So what I expect to see after this is my module home file, of course, will be updated with the next iteration, 1.1 snapshot. And I would like to see that GitHub properly did the release, has the release, and that everything's tagged correctly. Now, what I wanted to show you before I released was that I was going to go into the detail view and take out the snapshot. But that's just a minor thing. I'll be able to get around that. So again, this takes a minute because there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes on Jahia to release the model. Of course, here we go, all done. So once the release is done, you can download the jar file, and like I said, just install it on another server, and you can distribute that way. I don't need to do that. So here, I see that I am definitely on 1.1 snapshot. There's my home file with the version 1.1. Let's go to GitHub and refresh. And here I see that I have one release of my module. And here I see master branch and then a tag 1. Oh, that's one release of the module. So to keep demonstrating this, I'm going to change that file here, which should have been 1.0 without the snapshot. But here, now I'm going to use 1.1. Let's start with version 1.1, save, and bear with me, we'll do that release again. So skipping the distribution server setup, now it knows to increment to 1.2 snapshot. I'll press the release, and we'll wait, and release one more time. While we're waiting, please remember to go to our site, www.jahia.com, to check out new videos and training materials as we create them and put them on our site. So I'm doing 2 releases here because actually the next step is that I want to show you how you can work with multiple versions of a module in Jahia Visual Factory. You can have several versions of a module today you cannot, and you can stop and start those as you wish. You can undeploy modules, of course. Now, all this is possible because Jahia Visual Factory 7 is using OSGI for the model. There we go. Now, our version 1.1 has been released. We'll just verify in GitHub here that we have 2 releases. There we go. So if I go here, so this is the 1.1 item. Again, on our module details page now, I see that I have a 1.0 installed, a 1.1, and my currently started version is 1.2 snapshot. So on the module details page, it's just information. What we want to do is go to mode administration. Now, there is a future webinar on the new administration in Jahia7, so we'll just focus here on the system components, the modules panel. This will give you a view of all your modules installed on your server. You could upload a jar file here. You can search for modules using this box. And my Acne News is right here on top. And I can go to the details, go back to that module details page. Quickly, I can see that I have 3 versions. I have a 1.0, a 1.1, and a 1.2 snapshot that's running. So here in 1.1, I can go ahead and start my 1.0 version. And if I click start, this will at the same time stop the 1.2 snapshot. What I should see here is my 1.0 snapshot that I have. Now, I can even stop all my modules. If I do that, let's see what happens. I have no modules started, so don't be shocked when I say that the page can't be found. I cannot render my page because the module is not available. but I could go ahead and start any one of these versions again. And if I go back to my preview mode and refresh, there's my version running, and there's my content. My content was not lost. I just stopped the module so I can maybe figure out which version should be running. So again, hot deployment and module switching, and very important, on deployment, you can completely clean up your installation. All the modules are available in Jahia7. So timing-wise, okay. So here, that actually concludes the webinar for today's example I wanted to show you. We have parts coming soon, so please join us for that. And I'm going to log on to Q&A and see if I can get some questions and answers going. Okay, please feel free to use the Q&A session to type in your questions. Thank you for joining us.